This is session 87. Who'd like to give a recap?
This big shopping montage. We destroyed Temple One's armor and scattered it around the continent, specifically Core. On our way from the temple where we were at, all the way to Hashat.
Which we made a remarkable time.
Yes.
Made very remarkable time.
The 6 days flew by in only 2 days.
You know what they say, time flies when you're having fun. and with our new cloud windwalking capabilities, we're having fun. We discussed for a while which way to go, whether we should go east to Hashat or and go around near the ocean and then around the river, or whether we should cut through the Sea of Glass. Discussing the pros and cons of each. We ended up going to Hashat that way, just because we weren't sure whether or not we'd make it through the Sea of Glass alive and unspoiled. We thought even though it was going to be further out of the way, it would be safer, or at least the devil we know, to head east. So we got caught in a storm near the Timbrels, and we were waylaid there for, I think, a day. It was quite a while.
It was overnight. Yeah.
So we got to Hashat, and we learned that we heard rumor. So we did a whole shopping montage where we each bought things that we wanted. T-Hole bought everybody a pair of desert clothing, so that they could look in style as we hit to the warm ones. We heard that the Great Wall of Dharma Shah was going to fall, and that the South has a lot of undead in it, and there's a lot of undead at the Sea of Glass. Clave / Axius.
Well, no, this was an Axius.
Wasn't even Clave.
Yeah, but T-Hole always just considers him Axius.
Fair.
Clave / Axius always he found a pub called Feed Mead Deed, and he became a member and and as a price membership, you have to tell a story. So he told a story and then came back to Zarius and T-Hole and Aurelia and said, "Hey, we gotta, you if you want, we can stay there for the night." It turned out that most places were going to close or weren't accepting. It was going to be tough to get a spot at another inn, so we ended up going to the Feed Me Deed and paying the membership price, and got our little name card or membership card, and we left off where we were had to tell a story to the patrons of a past adventure or some brave deed or something.
So yeah, the barkeep, he brings out like a platter of food and some ale for you all to drink, and then points over in your direction when they're looking for the next person to tell the story.
Fine. So T-Hole, like, is there like an area where the storytellers sit?
No, everyone is more or less, yeah, everyone basically stands at the table that they're at. the place is, it's later at night now, so the place is a bit more full than it was when Clave originally came in. There are probably 24 people scattered around. All of them do look like they are adventuring types. They're geared up a little bit differently, a little more in desert fashion. But you could tell all of them seem to have a certain degree of weaponry. Most of the people have packs that are stuck underneath the tables. Some of them are having their own private conversations, but that seems to be par for the course. Not everyone listens to every story, but most people have quieted down and are now waiting for one of you to tell your tale.
Who here knows the simple joy of a lover's embrace? And T-Hole pauses and looks around and like awkwardly makes eye contact with people around him. waiting for some sort of response.
So it takes a couple seconds for them to catch on that this is a participatory story. But eventually you start hearing murmurs and people are like, yeah.
I knew it well once, a long time ago. Her eyes, a vibrant violet, and she was fierce as the most hell-bent rock. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was a young pupil back then, learning some form of magic I've long since forgotten. I could barely stay focused on my studies as my gaze inevitably drifted towards this woman, this opulent form, which caused every fiber of my being to yearn. And he looks around and pauses and gives a raised eyebrow. Alas, it was then that we made sweet, sweet, friendly friends.
We had see people were not expecting friendly friends to come after sweet, sweet.
We had an intense friendship where we spent most of every day together talking about hopes and dreams. Alas, I had business that called me away, and our brief time was at an end. I miss her. You see, we spent every moment together for a whole year. Life took both of our ways, and much time had passed before I saw her again. How my loins awakened. At that moment, she walked in the room. Luckily, I had my spell book nearby, if you know what I mean. She was different.
I don't know what you mean.
He continues on anyway.
Yeah, I'm a crowd. I'm somebody at the crowd. What?
She was different, happy to see me, yet about as warm as a pale spring morning. She was stunning and beautiful, probably more so than she was when I last saw her, as wisdom was etched upon her face in place of naivety. We both had grown. Alas, we grew apart, though. For better or worse, our reunion was short-lived. You see, she was called away by her benefactor. Doing some important research, something that she said would change the world. Mostly, I believed her. Except she had a cold glint in her eye that was foreign to me, and it left me wondering. I was unnerved at first, but eventually it slipped my mind as other matters took hold, until I noticed it after I slayed my first demon. The similarity was too correlated to be coincidental. That's when it dawned on me that she'd been taken. And I've hated demons since. The only good demon is one that can never come back from this world. I saw her again, and it was not so good. Sometimes I fall asleep with her name following my last breath. Paradonna. And that's why the Empire has failed us. Because they let demons back in the world.
So make me a performance check with advantage.
Oh, thank God for the advantage.
Several people stand up to applaud. At least one of them also picks up his pack to cover his erection.
Oh
After having
no.
heard your story.
He picks up his spell book, if you know what I mean.
Yes. He is one of the people who thought he understood what you meant.
Well, that's it then.
Brass looks over and says, "That was a good one. I wasn't expecting something quite so erotic." But which one of you is next?
That same crowd member. But was it erotic though? Because I can't tell. Zarius is not going to volunteer himself for this.
Well, in the form of Ayan Arif, he holds his glass up to Zarius and says, Zarius, you should be next. Go on, tell your story.
Why should I be next?
Because it is your obligation.
What about him? And I just like point to some stranger.
Ah, but it is your turn. Go on. I'm sure you have magnificent tales to share.
In order to prepare myself to be like Zarius, I didn't think of a goddamn thing. So Zarius stands up begrudgingly. Chair fucking like screeches back.
Even the people having their own private conversations get quiet at this point because of all the buildup.
The suspense is killing me. I hope it lasts.
I hope it kills you.
I suppose time will tell. But you have a story to tell.
And the bartender chimes in and says, "We can go on to someone else if you want, but we have to come back to you by the end of the night. Now that you're a member, got to tell your story. Also, who's Zarius? Your name's Clave, right? Did I get your name wrong?
I don't remember giving a name. Oh, I did say Clay. I did. Yeah. Because we were
Yes,
given
yes,
different
yes.
names,
This is Clave Zarius. It is a strange name.
hyphenated.
Indeed.
Zarius is my maiden name.
We could go on to Lucerosa.
I found a village. Its people were strange to these lands. Strange to your people, I should say. They lived in the sands. They worshipped different gods. There was one there. He was a pious one. He toiled to make sure that the village was never overrun with the undead, and to make sure that their dead passed peacefully. One day that village was attacked. And he was forced to do the one thing that would cause his exile in order to save his village. But he did it. And now I have his staff. And I stamped down the staff.
It is a staff of children.
This is the staff of my food summoning. Just because people are different does not mean that they have different experiences. Appreciate them. Just sit down again.
Okay.
Mhm.
Annoyed.
Give me a performance check.
With advantage?
No, I'm going to say no. You just read your backstory.
Yeah, I sure did. I mean, I didn't have anything
So
else.
there is a little bit of abortive polite applause. People, it's not a bad story, but people have heard better. This is slightly worse than average.
Zarius does not care at all.
And the bartender Brass says, "Well, we have one more at that table."
It was a brave thing that you did, Zarius, telling your story.
I care not what you say.
Life is just eating up this personality, and just all the funny is just poking at Zarius.
Meanwhile, while people are telling their stories, you see there is one, I was going to say man, but he's actually a dwarf, who seems to be sort of going table to table. Hard to say what he's doing. He's showing people some sort of old scroll as he goes, but he eventually gets up to your table and bypasses it when he realizes that Brass is sort of looking for Lucerosa to give her story.
All right. Is there like a stage, or are you just like,
No, people just stand up and speak where they are.
okay, good. I will stand on the table in my black outfit with my chain and my whip.
Well, you are currently disguised to look like a desert dweller.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that's no
dark,
fun.
dark skinned
Oh, that's
human,
right. I
golden
forgot
eyes.
that I
Oh, okay.
did I cast seeming on everybody?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we
Okay.
can still
Yeah,
have the whip,
I wouldn't
right?
be able to just travel the streets very easily if I
That's
looked
right.
like my normal self.
Okay.
So Lucia Rosa will start to strum a soothing jaunt on her on her lyre. I'll just use my bando. Yeah, I'll use that. So she starts something upbeat. She says, there was once a girl in a fair kingdom ruled by an emperor who was just so dreamy. And she kind of looks over at not T-hole, who had a mother who was just the fairest in the land. I mean, she had a very, very important job. She was the food tester. And this glorious woman who radiated energy and light and love for everyone, everyone that she saw, she was almost like a dream. One day I heard someone call my name in kind of a hurry, and I ran down to where the official food tasting was taking place, and there, laying on the ground, choking, turning all sorts of strange colors, was my mother. She looked ill, and as she began to aspirate and choke on her own vomit and die, her life just kind of vanished. That's when I decided, I mean, this person who I'm speaking of, not particularly me, the story I've heard, decided that maybe to get revenge on the person who did this, let's just call him Mordenkainen for simplicity's sake. So she went up to this mansion, of course, to find him, and then ended up gazing at herself in a mirror, realizing all the rage and hatred that she had for this person, and sort of fell into it. And the years had passed when she finally escaped, and alas, Mordenkainen was gone. Or maybe he was dead. The rage was still there, but there was no one to kill. So she ended up with some troop, some ragtag bunch of adventurers who, for rhyme nor reason, did strange and odd things and had adventures that, well, are simply unbelievable. You probably read them in stories or hear about them. Then along the way, she contracted some disease, some horrible, horrible disease that will eventually snuff the life out of you. It will eat you from the inside and leave you with nothing, and you're just a corpse of twisted and a bunch of flesh with bone eaten out. So she has that to look forward to. And then, of course, along this journey, which seems to never end, this torment and struggle, she's asked to perform and come to some backwood dump to tell some story to a bunch of rubes just to get a membership. So here she is.
Here.
Or
And Brass
fortunately,
says 3 stories, actually. This is just the first night, so you only have to tell one.
Oh,
Two
Just-
more on subsequent visits, though.
okay. Assuming that you're not all dead by then.
Someone will be here.
That's a shame.
T-Hole's gonna like lean over to someone. Sounds like she's got herpes. I hope we don't get that.
So go ahead and make me a performance check. I mean, for you, that is really phoning it in. So
But I think at my level, I can use Bardic Inspiration to add a D10, right?
actually, I don't think you can use bargaining inspiration on yourself.
No. I could do something like that. Oh, I guess not. But it is worth an action point. No, I'll just keep it. All right.
So yeah, there is legitimate applause, possibly among the people who don't understand that they are the rubes in this story. But nonetheless, people enjoyed the music and how it was told. And at some point, the bartender then comes over and he puts down in front of T-Hole a clear glass, actually sort of a crystal goblet, in which there is a very thick, almost cough syrup-like purple drink. People enjoyed your story so much that I was asked to give you this. This is, well, it's called purple worm venom. It's very strong. It's very expensive.
Do not drink it.
Well, I do like strong and expensive. You said it was from a man behind the bar?
No, it was from the man over in the corner there.
T-Hole's gonna look in that direction.
There is a human man. He's clearly from Ismailir. He doesn't appear to be so much dressed as an adventurer, though his robes appear to be much more expensive than most of the people in this establishment.
Zarius, would you tell me the nature of this purple worm venom? What is this alcohol by volume?
I mean, I don't actually have any skill in like poisoner kits or anything like that, but purple worm.
T-Hole would
It's just
know.
called-
He'd be like, "You're the person who knows things about health."
Well, first, it is called purple worm venom, so I do not suggest drinking it.
I have proficiency with alchemist supplies. Might I be able to glean any information?
You can make a check with using intelligence.
Yeah, I don't have detect poison right now.
So you obviously have a sense of what purple worm venom is, as in the venom from a purple worm. This you believe to be, I mean, it's kind of like putting like a scorpion stinger in the bottom of tequila. There is, in theory, like a tiny bit of purple worm venom mixed in with this drink to give it a bite. But you would know it is sort of so, to the extent they use it at all, and a lot of manufacturers will skip that step, it is so diluted that there's almost nothing and usually nothing left of the purple worm venom in the drink. It is still highly alcoholic and considered to be pretty spicy. So there is still a bite to it that some people like and some people don't.
So, Ayan would turn to T-Hole and say, I would not worry about this drink. It is a very alcoholic thing, but it's not poisonous. At least it shouldn't be. But who knows what others may have put in it between getting to you. But as a drink, it is safe.
T-Hole looks down at it and he picks it up and like takes a whiff of it, getting that spicy kind of like that not that scent like through his nose.
Right. If anything,
And
you kind of get notes of like a very strong cinnamon-like smell coming off of it.
What kind of spicy are we
Ah.
talking exactly?
I guess a cinnamon spice. And he says, I grow and improve every day. And he like downs it in one.
Okay, so you don't have to make me a con save. You can just determine it is very spicy to the point where, particularly if you're drinking the whole thing, you realize that you would feel it sort of burning as it goes down. When you stop drinking, you immediately feel the alcohol begin to sort of evaporate on your tongue, and it takes a lot of the pain out of it. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be drunk all in one giant gulp like that. But there is still a noticeable spicy bite to it. So you do still feel a little bit of pain in your mouth. If there were water on the table, that definitely would be attractive to you at the moment. But it's not damaging. And there's not so much alcohol in one glass of it that you're at any risk of becoming drunk just yet.
I mean, can he even become drunk?
That's
Being a
true.
monk
You
after
probably
all?
can't.
Can't even
Well,
be
you probably
poisoned.
can't be poisoned.
No, it can't be poisoned.
So for all you know, it was actually just 100% pure purple worm venom.
Seeing T-Hole's reaction, Ayan would have went, oh, I forgot to mention this is quite spicy.
Water.
Brasco's trotting back behind the bar and comes out with a wooden pitcher and pours you a cup of water.
T-Hole's gonna try to grab for the pitcher.
Was it like a mug, or how was that?
It was a crystal goblet that was brought out in. It was a very fancy glass that it was brought out in.
But probably not like something you travel with.
No, probably not. I mean, it would break pretty easily if any force were ever applied to it. So it's not practical to travel with it.
Oh,
So he lets you take the pitcher if that's what you want to drink out of. He wasn't expecting it, but he doesn't fight you on it.
Yeah, he'll just drink the pitcher as much as he can until he's either full on volume or the feeling is satiated.
So he leaves you with the pitcher and the glass. He does take the crystal goblet back, and that dwarf who had passed by the table comes back over. Oh, it's a very good set of stories you guys told. So, are you new in town? Are you looking for some adventure to go on? Because I happen to have come into possession of a map to a nearby treasure. I don't know how much gold will be in there, but from the legends, quite a bit. Unfortunately, my own adventuring company has fallen on hard times. Several of us passed on and are obtaining the map. So I'm hoping to find someone who will pay me a little bit of coin so that I can help their families out.
Well, we were just planning on traveling through. Is there anything more than just a hoard of gold?
Is this really a treasure map? Any insight on this guy?
Yeah, inside him, he liked our stories too. So
Right.
he's full of shit.
Right. Even Zarius is. Yeah, you can roll insight. You're sure he's leaving a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just based on his general demeanor, you suspect his story is a little too convenient. He's looking to raise money to give to the, you know, widows and orphans, and
Right.
there's no way to verify this map, and you'll probably never see him again.
Right. You have given insufficient information.
I mean, I'm happy to provide whatever information it is you need. It is an old royal tomb from 1,000 years ago, from even before the Empire, some say. Probably one of the last rulers in the region before the Empire took over Hashat. To answer your question, it's not just gold. There probably would be various kinds of jewelry, his crown, of course. I imagine there's even magic. Of course, there will be traps and, I'm sure, undead guardians. The normal sort of things you would expect to find guarding such a hoard.
And how is it that you came into possession of this map?
Well, there is, to some extent, I have to keep my own company secrets, but there is in the desert an ancient tower filled with books, filled with knowledge. We were aware of this, and we were hoping to find the location of the last Lord of Ilhashat, the last true Lord, at least, before the Empire came. So we traveled to this library and figured out where in the desert it rises, as it only comes above the sand surface once every month on the night of a full moon, rising like a column into the air. We managed to get in just as it rose. Having only a few hours, our mage was able to locate the information we needed, but unfortunately, the guardians of the library were perilous in and of themselves. We lost 2 men right there. We managed to get out with the information. Our mage, unfortunately, was not quite as quick as the rest of us, and we watched as the tower sank back into the sand with him still inside. Hopefully, we will be able to mount an expedition to save him, but we will probably have to hire mercenaries given our losses. I hope he's still alive when we find him.
Sucks to be you.
You know, you speak of this treasure map, but I seem to be more interested in this library.
Well, many people would be. If you're willing to work with us, I suppose, when the next full moon comes, you could come with us to help save our friend. That would then
Just-
give you access to it, at least for, I don't know how long the next full moon will be up, but several hours at least, I assume.
Well, Clave, I know that we are heading further south to deal with other matters, but we do have some alternative things we need to address, much as Lucerosa's story indicated. Perhaps it would not be so bad to find this library to see what knowledge we can gain. Perhaps to find a cure.
Do I know when the next full moon is?
Do you have any training that would be
I mean,
relevant
I
to
have
that?
survival. I don't know.
Yeah, survival's enough. Make me a survival check.
Ah, fuck.
So, I mean, part of the problem is, you know, that there are technically 4 moons, and he hasn't specified which one he's talking about.
That's true. Am I familiar with this tower legend, whatever the hell, this tower library?
You've never heard of this library in the desert. That said, this is, you know, Il-Hashat would have been
Yeah.
mostly human kingdom
Mhm.
back in the days he's talking about. So it's not something you would necessarily have a lot of expertise in.
So it's not like a wandering tower that appears in different places.
Not that you're aware of, not that you've heard.
Right. At least if it is, it doesn't come near us. That's the important thing.
Right.
I
I mean, if you ask him, he'll say no. There is a specific. He and his friends found exactly where the tower is. He's not aware of it appearing anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean,
But you still get the sense that he's leaving a lot of details out, and that the map might be fake.
yeah. We still have no guarantee that this map leads to anything. And this library, I do not know if it would have the knowledge that we seek, though perhaps it might have better details on what we seek.
So Kurt, what about this? Here's what I'm thinking with Clave. I fake like, oh, I knocked over my drink. I need to pick up my cup. While I'm underneath the table, I cast detect thoughts on the guy so that I hide the visual and whisper the auditory components of the spell and attempt to glean more information from him that way.
So I don't generally allow spell verbal components to be whispered. You could try to disguise it as some other spell. You don't know that he's going to be able to tell the difference anyway.
Could disguise it as like you're cursing, and then, but you're really not. You're saying the spell because you spilled your drink.
Yeah, could I do that?
Yeah, you could try to do that. You could make me a stealth check.
Okay. Let's go. Pew. Damn.
Yeah, he is unable to figure out what you're doing.
Okay. And then DC 18. What is that? Wisdom. Fart.
Uh-oh. He knows what you did.
So you see, he gets like a look on his face, like something, almost like a bad odor has suddenly hit his nose, and he begins like swatting at the air.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you're doing? Get out of my mind. Trying to offer you a legitimate opportunity here. And you, still having access to his surface thoughts, immediately it crosses his mind that this is not actually a legitimate opportunity. And he goes stomping off towards a different table.
Okay. Well, we have not lost anything, but we have not lost anything.
We've lost Tony.
Darius said, hell with it.
Well, to the rest of the table, he was a charlatan or charlatan. I can't. I'm this accent.
I mean, I was going to say at that moment, Brass comes over, and I imagine you didn't say in character this accent. Since this sort of thing is Clave's bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
But Brass comes over and he brings over 4 more ales for everyone. And then he leans in and says, it's actually kind of poor form to probe people's minds. Maybe don't do that.
Brass, how did you know what I've done?
The Feed Me Deed is an unusual establishment, and we keep tabs on what's going on here. Also, he complained to the table next to you. Table next to you complained to me.
Well, forgive us, Brass. That
There's no formal rule against it, but you know, if I get enough complaints, I'll have to ask you to leave.
it should not be a problem. But that man, he was offering treasure, and we are passing through, but if it were a legitimate operation, we might have considered it, but he was clearly lying, and were it not for my spell work, we would not have been certain of it.
Well, that's fair enough. Copper Eye sometimes has legitimate opportunities, and sometimes not so much. Forged maps are not that uncommon around here.
Yes, well, once again, my apologies. This shall not be a recurring problem.
Yeah, no harm, no foul.
Clave, you've returned.
Computer
Had
just
to
fucking
take-
crashed randomly,
yeah,
huh?
Had to take a wicked piss.
That man, he was a charlatan.
I didn't even have to grab for my spell book. I mean, yes, he was clearly a charlatan.
And Brass says, why would you grab for your spell book? He turned you on?
Never mind. It's been a long night.
See, makes no sense.
Brass goes back behind the bar.
Well, I feel like we should have at least addressed the gentleman in the corner who bought us such a fine drink. It would be rude to have downed it in one and not at least introduced ourselves, or at least myself, if no one else wishes to accompany.
He did not buy me a drink.
If that is something you wish to entertain, I do not know if you need any of us to accompany you.
Fair enough.
As Clave said, he did not buy for the table.
Very well. I assumed he bought for the winner, so he would have purchased for one of us regardless. But
you missed my tale. I had these people up in applause. It is too bad that you missed it. You might have gotten a little bit of insight into where it is that I've come from.
Well, it sounds like there are at least 2 more tales to go.
But
So-
it would be bad form to repeat the story.
I have no desire to come back here.
I'm not having fun. I'll never having fun. I'm gonna leave soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure Zarius knows how to have fun. He's been all businesses, for a very long time.
I don't know if I've ever heard Zarius smile. I don't think
Well,
Tony's ever described Zarius as having smiled.
I mean,
I
how
actually-
do you
I-
smile with
Tail wag?
without lips?
A little tail wag, or like
Oh no, definitely not. Like
Actually,
maybe there's a bit of obvious excitement when he's like looting gems. Maybe.
I think, and I don't remember the specifics anymore, but I think there was a point when Zarius laughed, and it was when something bad happened to one of you, either Lucia Rosie or T-Hole.
That's
Because I noted at the
possible.
time, it's like the first indication that Zarius can feel happiness.
it has to be like extreme Schadenfreude. Uh,
So Teal is gonna will make his way over to the gentleman or gentle lady in the corner.
He's a human male. And he's talking to 2 other people, one of whom is a halfling, the other one is human. And he looks up. The storyteller. Yours was very unusual. I thought it worthy of the drink.
Well, thank you, mysterious benefactor. May I have the pleasure of knowing your name?
I am Ayadon Mehunes.
Aidan Mehunes.
And your
That
name?
is that a local name?
The Ayadon clan is local. I have many relatives across many thousands of miles of desert.
Well, I'm T-Hole.
And suddenly the entire bar goes silent as you hear a mocking laughter reverberating off the walls.
Every time I forget about
People begin looking around confused.
I actually forgot the fake name that T-Hole gave.
And
You're
so
muted.
I said that seems in character.
and this guy Marunes is also sort of looking around confused. Was that in response to you? It seemed focused on you. That is a very interesting, very unusual curse.
It is tough to say. Anyways, what are the name of your friends, your companions?
These are very trusted servants of mine. However, and he looks at them and he says something, he says it in a language that he expects you will not understand, as it's a fairly odd local language. But you realize he says to them that there is a lot of stuff to prepare before morning, that all of his equipment has to be in order so that he can leave the city at first light. He needs them to go and ensure that all of his preparations are completed. Please sit down. My servants have work they must attend to.
Very well. So, what about you? What brings you to the feed me deed tonight?
Well, I am
You're in search of just a good story?
less of an adventurer, more of a trader, at least in most parts of my life. But I have gone on a few adventurous outings from time to time. So I became a member here long ago. I simply prefer this place as being more interesting than the local taverns and bars you find here. Plus, I also arrived late in the evening, and local custom here is that the inns or the washats or other places where you might stay tend to close unless they are fairly seedy and catering to the criminal sort. So, given that I arrived late, I decided I would simply bed down here for the evening. Where are you headed off to? I
Well,
can't place your accent, so I assume you are not local to Hashat.
heading away south to the warm ones.
I thought you might have business here. There are many adventurers who look for lost cities in the sands around Hashat.
So
The
we have
warm
heard
lands.
from. So we've heard from, and T-Hole gestured towards the guy who was showing the map around. So we heard from the sulking fellow.
And he looks over and says, yes, he called himself Kaparai. And he shrugs a bit. His map did not look authentic to me. I have a good eye for forgeries. That one seemed too new to be a true map to treasure. I don't necessarily know the location of every set of ruins in the desert, of course, so perhaps I'm wrong. But we chose to pass on his offer to buy his map. If you say he is a charlatan, it does not surprise me.
He may or may not be, but we at least haven't a reason to believe that he isn't.
The warmlands you say you're going to, that's not many people would go that far, south or inland. You're aware of all the rumors going on down there, I assume.
Slightly, but I could be reminded of a few.
Well, I cannot vouch for all of the rumors. The rumors tend to be embellished, of course, but I have heard that the Warmlands has been enveloped in a permanent dust storm, making it impossible to travel in those lands. I have heard that demons and giants have caused this to happen, that a vast set of fortresses have attacked cities in the Warmlands and Dharma Shah itself. I have heard that the Empire has also reappeared back in Dharma Shah.
The Empire, you say?
Yes, several weeks ago, and this I can confirm, although I did not see it myself. I have operatives here in the city, business associates, who said a vast fleet of Imperial ships sailed by. It was quite the spectacle. Many people assembled along the walls and shore to watch as this, some said endless fleet. Obviously, that was an exaggeration, but at least I would expect it to have been many hundreds of ships sailed south. They did not stop in Hashat, so their purpose and final destination I do not know, but there is not much to the south of us except for Kaja and the river. Perhaps they were going to Kaja. Perhaps they were going around the Great Horn, for all I know. But normally when people go south, they would not go through the Eternal Sea.
Why is that?
That would simply be the long way to get to the Great Horn.
That's fair.
If you wanted to get to the
Do-
Great Southern Ocean, the Sea of Torment is the normal way. Perhaps they simply could not navigate all the way to the Sea of Torment. I don't know what the situation is further north than Ismailia itself.
Do any of the rumors make mention of any personnel that may be on these ships? Anyone who stood out?
All I know is a fleet of ships passed. I doubt anyone had enough of a vision to see individuals on the boats.
Well, that's fair. Interesting. I wonder what the Empire could want with Nil Khaja or Dharma Shah.
Well, and he leans in and his voice gets low. There are many ill omens that are passing through the eyes of the prophets these days. So all of them seem to point to the south. Something bad may be coming down there. You should be careful. Even here, we find dark portents clouding the minds of our rulers. We believe there may be even the rebirth of ancient cults. People disappeared off the streets all the time. Some say they are being used in dark rituals. I suppose to some
Yes.
extent there are always such rumors, but for some reason it feels different to me this time.
You said that the leader of this town, of Nil Khaja, is off to you.
I would not know. I do not have any direct connection to the great Caliph. I have no reason to
One-
believe that whatever has gone wrong, it has gotten to his exalted level. He is never seen in public to begin with, though, so I would have no basis of knowing that. I just know that it seems as if crime is on the rise. Strange things are seen in the skies. Like I said, in the south, they say there is a permanent dust storm that covers the warm lands.
Interesting.
And the warm lands also, you are aware that it is a realm of dragon men, right?
Yes. I'm aware and prepared to deal with that as I need to.
My second cousin, once removed, has said he operates a shop in Dharmasha, that many Dragonborn have been fleeing out of the land, out of the dust storms and into Dharmasha, where they are trying to raise their own armies or organize their own armies. I have not heard back from him in some time, so I'm unclear on whether they are trying to form a force of their own kind or trying to hire mercenaries. I'm curious, are your friends going to fight for the Dragonborn?
I imagine that we probably will.
Many adventurers do take up mercenary work, so that is not surprising, I suppose.
I have
But you
no
would be
ill will
fighting
against
against
Dragonborn.
giants and demons. At least if the rumors are true, that is what awaits you down there. Very hazardous.
Well, the only good demon is one that's been permanently removed
Well,
from
I
the
wish
face
you
of this world.
complete success in that. I hope that the demons do not get a chance to get their claws into any of you. especially our friend who said she is sick and suffering from some illness.
She's a tough girl, tough woman. She can take care of herself. I've seen her beat things far more dangerous than some illness.
I've only seen her beat the self-esteem of every one of us here in this room. But I can see that you are probably very well correct in your assessment of her. So how are you making it to the south? Are you going by ship?
Is to be undetermined. We managed to make record time here. I'm afraid that I'm afraid that our journey beyond this point will probably not be as quick. Ship would be the most comfortable and probably expedient, but unless there's another way.
Other than on foot, I do not know of another way. You could, if you have sufficient funds, buy some other means. You could travel by camel, by mule, all of which would be hard travel, but if you hug the coast, it would not be unbearable, especially given that it's getting late in the summer. The temperatures should be cooling off soon. You have a lot of coin, then I don't know why you'd be staying here, but I suppose there are the occasional sellers of griffins, though those would be more common in Ilkaja than here.
How do you get around?
We do it on the old-fashioned way, camels and a caravan.
Very well. What sort of city is Ilkaja? I've never been.
It's fairly large. It's not as big as Il Hashat. It is run by a fairly, I would say, eccentric family of nobles. They do not have a single unified leader. They have a committee of people from this one royal family, from the Khadjaarim family. They seem to rule in council, as I understand it, but their decision-making process is not public. So a lot of their decisions seem as if they're as random as if they come from a single ruler. Though there are many festivals down there. There are many days off. Almost half the year, the people are required to not work, which can impinge a bit on my family's lines of business down there. Darmersha is a little more, although part of Ilkaja, or at least the same nation as Ilkaja, it is a little more practical in terms of how many days off people take.
Well, it sounds like a nightmare. If you're always taking days off, how does anything get done?
I suppose it is a double-edged sword. It is good for people to rest, but it is also good for people to work. The family, however, does appreciate its festivities. So there are many public holidays, many public festivals in Ilkaja, the city itself. I suppose if you want to work, you do not settle in Ilkaja. You settle in the farmlands around it or Darmersha.
Do you know about when the rumors surrounding this dust storm in the warm ones? Do you know when it started?
Not exactly when it started, but the rumors of the giants and the demons probably were about the same time. And that started perhaps a year ago, maybe more. A year ago was probably when I first heard them. They say the entire royal family of the Dragonkin were killed off using either some sort of civil war was the first thing I heard, and then I heard that a powerful magical curse blanketed the land and created the dust storms and brought the demons in, and the demons killed all of the royals. Though my cousin says that, in fact, there are still some nobles down there. Only the royal line was killed off. The nobles continue to run certain parts of the country, but I believe they are under the thumb of the giants. It is curious, as, again, purely rumor, but the rumor is that these giants are of all the various different types, and that somehow they manage to work together. But in all of the stories I was raised with, I have never heard of such a thing. The giants supposedly stick with their own specific kinds.
Strange indeed. I'd like to see that happen.
Now, I don't imagine whatever has caused it, if that rumor is true, that it is good for people like you or me, or for the Dragonkin for that matter. If you are going to join the Dragonkin's resistance, I assume you must travel to Dharmer Shah. I've heard that they've even let the Dragonkin out of the ghetto of Dharmer Shah. They roam the streets, they say, looking to find their mercenaries.
Well, if that's their only recourse to taking their home back, I suppose anyone would do that. I certainly would.
I am simply surprised that the rulers of Dharma Shah would allow Dragonkin to roam the city freely. I can't imagine the circumstances that would allow them to make such a decision. The Dragonkin and the people of Dharma Shah have been in conflict for centuries, at least prior to the building of the wall. They were always in conflict. I suppose it is a more commercial relationship they have now that the wall has been built. You can't send armies around the wall easily unless you send them around the Sea of Glass. And while the Dragonkin can do that, it is hard to do that in great numbers.
Right.
As I said, I unfortunately have to leave at dawn, so I must bid you farewell for now. I need to go upstairs and go to sleep.
Well, thank you for the drink. It was delicious and
Thank you for
good,
your
safe
story.
travels.
There are not many tales of romance that you hear in this place. It is almost all tales of killing, even if it was a sad tale of a romance to this Paradonna person you mentioned.
Well, I did feel like the joint could use a little bit more. Could class up the joint a little bit with a solid romance story.
Well, I hope I am here when you tell your second or third tale.
It will be bigger, better, and uncut. That much I can assure you.
Well, you have a good night. And he downs the rest of whatever it was he was drinking and gets up and then walks towards the stairs.
Before leaving that area, T-Hole is just gonna do like a cursory glance, like to where he was sitting, to like make sure he didn't leave anything behind.
like-
You know, sorry, what we said?
I feel like I probably would have been sort of eyeballing that guy just to make sure he wasn't going to try to do anything fishy. But otherwise, I got nothing else.
Okay, make me a perception check.
Zarius or T-Hole?
Zarius. So yeah, you didn't really see him do anything fishy. I mean, you did notice that he was sort of fiddling with the pouch on his belt for most of the time he was talking, but it seemed more like a nervous to keep his fingers busy than anything else. T-Hole, make me an investigation check. So looking around, you don't see that he's left anything behind. I mean, you notice that he has barely touched the food that was in front of him. But he did, down the rest of that drink he had. The drink he had appears to be the same purple worm venom that you had, although he didn't appear to be drunk at all. You don't know how much of it he ultimately had.
Okay. And T-Hole will go back to everyone else, to Zarius, Clave, and Aurelia, or whatever they call themselves now. And
You're the one I can't remember what you said your name was going to be.
I didn't write it down either. It's probably something like dumb, like Kevin. And he'll mention pretty much everything that he said. That about the politics in Khadjaa and the Empire being in Dharma Shah, and the perpetual sandstorm going on in the Warmlands. Zarius, does this sandstorm sound like any magic of your people? They say this person says there are rumors, at least, of dragonkin fleeing to Dharma Shah, seeking refuge and looking for aid to take their homeland back. Is this magic or something you're familiar with?
I'm going to say probably not, right?
Right. You've never heard of, you've never heard of permanent dust storms ever.
Right.
Although sometimes big dust storms, not ones that would hang around for like a year.
They would roll through, but they never stay. And if my people have gone to Dharma Shah, then we should hurry.
I agree. This is no time to be chasing fancy towers in the desert.
The tensions are likely to only raise. Conflict is likely happening already.
Most definitely. I mean, Kepri has said as much. I'm concerned about the Empire's presence in Dharma Shah, though. It sounds like they came with a great armada.
Well, then we just have to make sure that we remain hidden.
When did they do this?
I didn't think to ask. I was so caught up in the story.
The Empire's reach is so far. Is it unusual for the Empire to be in this area?
You would know that this area fell away from the Empire about a century ago. So it has been a while since anything in Ismailir has been part of the Empire. The Empire still has a lot of trade power, though. Like there's a lot of the economic activity of the continent still is focused on getting goods into the Empire. So they have embassies all over the place. Sending a fleet this far south, the Empire is not even known for its fleet. So where they would get access to the ocean is a question, because there's no obvious routes to get to the Eternal Ocean with a fleet. And if they sent, it was said hundreds of ships, that's a large portion of the Empire's actual fleet.
I may have missed it, but are they like actually engaging in battles and war?
All that was said was that they sailed past Hashat and, without stopping.
Okay.
So he was speculating that they went to Ilkaja because it's the only obvious port to the south that they might be interested in. Unless it was just some really sort of long voyage that they were on to go around the southern tip of the continent. And that's when he was saying that would really be taking a long way to get to the southern tip of the continent.
Given Clave's high intelligence, would it be a reasonable connection for him to make that if the Empire is searching and putting so many resources into finding the wand at Eternity's doorstep, and they suddenly have a massive fleet that they're sending out there, that perhaps they have a lead to the wand out there, or some
that's
other weapon of
right.
equal?
Yeah. So that guy wouldn't have known any of that. It certainly makes sense that they would be more focused on the southern desert because they're looking for it, whether they have a lead or not. If that's where they've determined that it is, or that's where they think they're going to get their next lead, it makes sense that that's why they'd be trying to make inroads there. So yeah, that is at least a perfectly logical inference.
I wonder if perhaps the Empire has gotten some knowledge that we are heading in that direction, and they may be trying to cut us off or get there before us to try and get the wand that they believe that we have from us. Or perhaps they may have found some other equal weapon.
If they were just trying to get us, if they were just trying to get us, then they wouldn't send an armada of ships. They would.
Are you so sure? Do you not remember when they sent that fleet after us? I mean, they sent that general lady, Turbo. I knew it was something like that. I was close. Turbo.
Yes, what a woman.
She nearly killed me. Regardless. T-Hole, they have already clearly demonstrated their desire and ability to use resources to try and capture us. I do not think it a unreasonable idea that they may have divined some sense of where we may be headed.
It's certainly possible. It just seems in poor form to do so openly. It seems like it would make more sense to just send a discreet force and try to capture us unawares rather than making the presence so so painfully known.
For the empire that just destroyed Lucianum in a brilliant display. For the empire that created an entire area of null magic using the throne. It seems the empire has no limit on how they will use their resources.
Points are well taken.
T-Hold, make me an investigation check. Never mind.
Yeah.
Ignore the figure behind the curtain.
Perhaps a question we should answer is whether we wish to continue our trek.
Actually, I forget at the moment what it was you were going to buy, but there was some plan to the next day go and rip somebody off with fake money to get something.
Yep.
I believe that was brass.
No,
But
I think Brass won. Like you were gonna rip Brass off, but then you decided like, well, we'll give him the real money. And there was still something else that you had to buy the next day.
I was hoping
you
to get
mean
iron
ivory
strips.
strips?
Ivory strips.
Right. I thought you bought right, that was it. You were gonna go back and buy the big chunk of ivory.
Yeah, because I don't have the money to do that.
Looked like Wet Willie struck again.
Right. Except like probably like a spray bottle or something.
Well, Joey, I'm tired after all this erotic storytelling and even more erotic news of the South. I could go to bed, at least what passes for a bed in the feed me deed. Feed me deed.
Yeah, I mean, so there is probably some nightlife in Il Hashat. No one being from here, you don't necessarily know where the best places to go are. There's certainly the bar is still relatively packed. Because it's it's about like 10 p.m. But in a city, Il Hashat is a very religious city. So this is pretty late for Il Hashat. But you could try to collect more rumors of what's going on where either tonight or tomorrow. And the beds upstairs, it's not that there's anything wrong with the beds. It's just, it's a big communal sleeping area. So everybody just takes a bed and goes to sleep out in the open. It actually will be a little bit of a problem for Zarius, as I'm sure there is no single bed that he won't like have his feet hanging off the edge of.
I will say to Clave though that should you reapply your spell before we sleep, so that it does not fade in the night. You're muted. You're muted in the thingy.
Yes, that would be a wise idea. I sometimes forget that the nature of the spells, since I do not require them. But yes. Also, Zarius, given your size, I also have a spell that would no that would um create a comfortable accommodation for you during the eve.
Just the nature of this.
As I said, I could make you a bed.
As long as it is not in some extra planar location.
No, nothing so crass.
I will sleep on whatever bed.
Yeah, it is your choice. I thought I might offer.
So T-Hole goes up and goes off to sleep. And let's take a 5-minute break because I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right. So T-Hole has gone upstairs to go to bed. What are the rest of you doing?
I'm also going.
Yeah. Clave probably the duration of, yeah, it's only a minute. Never mind. Well, no, I mean, we have time. And so, well, no, but then Brass said it's poor form, so never mind. My character is going to be going to bed as well. Although he will tell everybody to meet him outside, in a somewhat hidden area so that he can recast the seeming spell so that it doesn't go off or end in the middle of the night.
Right. So wandering back outside, you realize that unlike northern cities, this city is really almost pitch black at night. Like there's a few lights on in the window of the Feed Me Deed. The other shops around it, there doesn't seem to be any street lighting. There are 2 moons that are partially full. So there's the moonlight, but otherwise it doesn't seem as though they spend any money or time lighting street lights. So not even really torches. Occasional candles you could see through windows, but that's about it. So it's very easy to find a secluded spot on the street where you can recast the spell.
Nice. So I would do that. And then that buys us another 8 hours.
So you also realize that, and maybe it varies in other districts of the city, but at least in this district, if you were wandering around in the dark, it would be pretty easy to be assaulted and mugged, which might be why the inns all basically shut their doors and don't take on new guests after a certain time. But you all get a night's rest. I mean, nothing happens. The beds, as it turns out, are more comfortable than you might have imagined them to be. The mattresses are at least very good. Maybe slightly less so for Zarius, just because he's taller than the bed is long.
What do I care
So-
about comfort?
Right.
First thing in the morning, gather everybody up to find a secluded place to once again recast seeming.
Probably have to do that like right away. What's duration of seeming?
8
8
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
So it's a little harder to do in the daytime because the shops also open up pretty early, but you're still able to find an alleyway where there doesn't seem to be anyone around.
Cool.
Clave could be mean and just change everybody's appearance, but I assume he doesn't do that. You got to spend another gold to get a new membership if you want to go back.
If it weren't for that, he might, at least with Zarius. He'd give him a butt chin.
Or like a Peter Griffin ball chin.
Yes.
It's a Balchinian.
So what do you guys want to do today?
Teal's ready to try to find a ship or some passage south that we could take other than walking.
Well, we're not walking, we're wind walking.
Oh yeah,
We
that's
have
right.
fast. We have quick passage.
So Teal's ready to go.
So Zarius, do you need anything to help you purchase the things that you're looking to find?
I haven't the coin necessary.
You don't? Okay, I got you. So in that same alley where I would cast seeming, I would take a minute, and it would start by just interesting motions with my hands that are kind of as if I'm trying to like kind of like waving something up from the ground, and eventually my shadow would begin to steam and you could see it steaming in black, and then using my hands I would be moving them in ways to shape the steam, and then after a few more moments it would collect and coalesce, and then finally there would be kind of amorphous form that kind of falls to the ground where and as it falls to the ground it kind of chinks, and it is, well, my intention is to use the creation spell to create a bag of gold.
Yeah, it would be easy to do. What's the lifespan on precious metals? I would just forget.
I think
the
it's an
spells.
hour, or maybe
Yeah, I just wasn't remembering. Okay, so you have
yeah,
a
1 hour.
basically an hour. You know, fudging the time a little bit. I think you got up at like 6 a.m. But good news, the Ivory Guy shop is open at 6 a.m.
Sweet.
So if you wanted to get a meal at the Feed Me Deed, you got a free meal when you joined. The next meal, however, would cost a gold. And it's pretty basic for a gold, but you know, this is where they make their money. It's not so much on the membership. It's on all the subsequent drinks and food.
I have a few real gold pieces, so I would probably actually spend the actual money because I feel like this is a relationship that Clave doesn't want to disrupt, but the other merchants, he doesn't really care.
Just reading this spell. Been a while.
So Zarius, Clave would hand you the bag of gold pieces and say, I think this should be enough. It's a really large bag of gold. because it can be up to a 5-foot cube. Obviously, that would be too heavy to carry, but
And let us go.
So, are you proficient? This is really all just color, but is Clave proficient with any sort of smithing tools?
farrier's tools.
Okay, give me a check with the farrier's tools, using intelligence.
I'm also proficient in a forgery kit. I don't know if that would be more relevant, but I have both. You said intelligence?
Yeah. So you make your way back to this, the stall from which this guy is selling his wares. Ah, I remember you. You were going to be back by the end of yesterday. You did not come back. My old price is off the table. I do still have the item you wish to buy. If you want to buy the ivory, it would cost you 1,000 gold.
I just dropped the coin bag.
He begins to pick through it.
You know what? Actually, one thing that I probably would have done first before we sent it over is, well, let me see what. So I would also cast, so I would need to spend an action point to have it prepared because I didn't have it prepared. But I would cast Nistel's magic aura to make
Mhm.
sure that the bag of coins does not detect as magical.
Okay. Actually, I'm just gonna, you can keep your action point. He was not checking for that. So it's a little bit of a waste. So yeah, just, he doesn't bother to check to see if the coins are magical. That wouldn't have occurred to him. He does look at the coins briefly, and is a little puzzled by them, but he pulls out a scale and proceeds to weigh a couple of the coins, finding them sufficiently uniform in like weight and size. The design on the coins isn't one he is necessarily familiar with, but he doesn't really so much care about that. He tests the gold on a touchstone and then says, so this is 1,000 coins, right? As he slides like the whole bag off the table, jerking his arm down as it swings free.
I suppose.
And then he reaches down, pulls open it. You hear him opening up a chest. You hear the lock click. And he brings up the chunk of tusk that you had seen the day before. There you are.
And it is the same one. It's not like a smaller piece or whatever.
Near as you can tell, it's the exact same piece.
I mean, I don't really care as long as I can, as long as I think it'll, be enough for what I need.
Yeah, you're sure it'll be enough.
It's good enough for me then.
Just
And
out
as
of
you walk
curiosity,
away, you do hear there's a little celebration in his stall.
is there anything else of interest in his stall that might be worth trying to haggle as a little bit of a bonus for all of that?
I mean, he mostly sells ivory goods. So you don't necessarily know the value of these ivory goods. Some of them are worked. A lot of them, like he has full tusks.
Okay, that's fine then. I don't need anything from an ivory merchant.
So I assume you are well and truly far away before all those coins vanish and the bag that came in.
I got no reason to stick around.
So what's next?
Well, I think we should be on our way.
I agree. It's sounds like there's a confluence of forces at play down in the Warmlands, and it would be better to get there sooner than later.
I'll just get outside the city.
Yep.
So you make your way to one of the main gates and pretty easily get outside the city, or at least outside the city walls. There's plenty of settlements right outside.
Yeah, I mean, I just once it looks like it's an okay time, I'll begin the process of turning us into mist.
Well,
cast-
first, do we want to cancel the seeming spell? Because otherwise we're gonna just be flying clip art.
Flying Clippy? How would we be flying clip art?
Because the seeming spell doesn't necessarily go away when you change into mist form. So we were joking that your illusionary selves just all T-pose and begin to fly through the air because now your mist is disguised as these people.
Kind of like I think there's it's in Red Dead Redemption where there's something similar to that.
What would be even more disturbing is whenever we use that mist form to like squeeze through a crack. What does that look like? That's what I want to know.
Well, we also said that because the spell doesn't say you could squeeze through cracks, that the spell doesn't allow that. So that
I thought it was
probably
like anything within an inch or something like that. I thought you could do that.
doesn't say it in the spell. So using the normal interpretive rule, like with gaseous form, you can squeeze because it says it.
Makes
Okay.
sense. So yeah, I wish to look like me again.
All right, so then I would cancel the spell before we go into mist form.
Okay. So I assume you're flying along the coast?
I think that was the idea, yeah.
Okay.
We have normal travel times again, or
Yes, we're back to normal travel times. Technically, in fact, I would say you were actually in normal travel times, all that. So for purpose, I don't know if Clave is keeping track of the days for purposes of his own magical research, but that was actually 6 days worth of traveling rather than just 2.
Excellent.
So someone roll me a D100.
Got you.
does something awesome happen on 69?
Well, on
Always.
59, yeah, the only things you do notice that it looks as if periodically as you're flying throughout the day, you can see just collections of bodies. It's not clear from high up what killed them, but at some point during the day, you do see a band of about 1,000 gnolls that are just massacring a small group of traders. But I'm assuming you don't stop for that.
Yeah, we can't.
A
Can't
1,000 gnolls.
Yeah, I
1,000
don't think we
gnolls.
can handle 1,000 gnolls.
I mean, we could.
We can
If
handle
they're
a
all-
decent amount of them.
If they're all like mostly minion level. No, couple.
on axe
you know,
economy alone, it's got us.
I have the fly spell and a wand of fireballs.
The wand of
That would
fireballs
be
has
pretty effective.
probably wand of fireballs definitely has charges that would probably be used up before you killed 1,000. But you do have Mirage Arcane, so you could trap them all in a maze and separate them. So you might be able to do it. If it would just take time.
And we all know that yes, you can go weeks without food, but you can't go very long without water. I just make it real dry. And it's a desert, so it already works.
Just have to make sure you don't land within like 10 minutes of them. So you cast the spell before they get to you.
Takes a minute just to transform out of the mist form.
Right, but the range on this is like a mile, so
Hmm.
Yeah, but I think one, we don't really have good ways of communicating while we're in windwalk form. But then also two, I mean, Clave isn't Lucerosi. Does it suck? Yeah. But is it his problem? Nah.
okay, so you continue on. So that the day ends. You're a pretty good distance away from the knolls, like at least 50 miles from where you saw the last knoll. And the sun is still up, but because you left you left in the morning, basically, the sun will probably be up for another 2 hours. It's about 6 p.m. And you're still basically in grasslands, so there's not really much risk of the desert per se. But you land along the coast in an area where you haven't seen anybody for a while, so there's probably nobody, at least in the immediate vicinity. So he's setting up a watch.
Yeah.
Well, do we need to set up a watch when I can create a castle with many
Yes.
walls?
I mean, you may not need to if you set up a castle with many walls. A castle with many walls might attract more attention than you'd get if you just set up the hut. But if you made like a castle with no doors, maybe you don't have to worry about flying things.
No doors, no windows.
Just a large Rapunzel tower.
Yeah, as you
But-
transform back, you realize it's actually cooler than you would have imagined, even along the coast. It is probably only at 6 p.m. like 80 degrees. You really would have expected it to still be kind of oppressively hot, but it's not so bad. It's not great either, but
So I would pose the option. Thank you. I would pose the option to the group. I can create a fortress for us, or at least some kind of very secure area, just to make sure that we're quite safe. If people want to do that, it would also be more comfortable. But if others are wanting to be a little bit more discreet, I mean, we definitely have the tiny hut as an option.
Well, I was looking forward to spooning with Zarius and the tiny hut. You know,
How was this the same day that we saw the gnolls?
it is.
I would rather be more secure in case the gnolls are heading this direction.
Okay. So Clave would then begin sculpting the spell, changing the land. He wouldn't change the entire mile that he could. He would keep it fairly local. He would create a number of very tall concentric walls. Probably about 30, 40, let's just go 100 feet high. And completely I can choose kind of the materials that I'm using, right? And they can't. Can I just have like walls of magma?
You could have, I mean, you could have walls that look like magma. They might not be quite as hot as actual magma, but they're also going to be standing upright. Whereas walls of magma might not be as stable as that.
Yeah, I would do that. And I would make sure that at the very least they radiated a lot of heat, even if it wouldn't technically deal damage, just to kind of continue to give that illusion. And then also between these concentric walls of magma, it would be a very deep moat between each wall. And then the tower would not have any doors. It would just have a single window up at not even a window, like a skylight. So it would just appear to be a tower that's slightly taller than the walls surrounding it, with just a solid stone tower with a entry on the top, on the ceiling or roof.
Okay. So then no watch because you're so secure.
Oh, that's actually a good point. It would also the area of the outer wall of the tower would be that like transparent material that I used when we were fighting that beholder thing. I would have a similar thing where we could like see out, but then it would be difficult seeing in, like a one-way mirror effect, so that we could see things coming, because I now realize that having no windows in the tower makes us blind.
Okay. So same question though, still, are you going to set a formal watch or not?
T-Hole's not watching anything. Not with this Thunder Cougar Falconberg of a tower.
Also very comfortable beds, like the best beds.
So someone roll me a D12.
I got it.
Okay. So the night passes. As before, you do see that it seems as if the appearance of this castle has drawn, especially because it's magma, so it's like glowing. So there's a glowing castle that appeared just on the horizon for some people. You see there seems to be a group of creatures. You can't easily identify them. They look mostly like goblinoids, but they're very sand colored. So they don't appear to be sort of your bog standard goblin. But a group of at least 100 of them has sort of gathered and is keeping its distance from the castle, but is clearly fascinated by it. So you see them sort of passing among the dunes and occasionally peeking out over the top, but they haven't mustered up the courage to actually get like even close enough to really feel the burning heat of the walls just yet. And it doesn't, from what you can see, it doesn't appear as though they have any ability to scale 100-foot walls anyway.
Are we? Is this what we're seeing, or is this what happens while we're asleep and we're not aware of it?
So since there was no watch, you didn't see them approach. And it took a, but they are essentially keeping an eye on the castle at this point. So it's what you see when you wake up is in the night, they have approached within, 200 or so feet of the outer walls. And they are currently sort of taking cover behind various dunes, various hills around the castle.
So, I would like to use an action to change the terrain a bit.
Mhm.
I would like to create giant poles that have suspended over the top of them massive disco balls within the group of these things, and then also because I want to confuse them, because disco balls, they're very celebratory and merry, but I also want a wind to kind of carry throughout the land that just like says doom, doom. I want them real confused.
Right. I would say, so you definitely could do like a voice that is saying this. You can do like a gentle wind. I don't want to step on control weather too much.
Oh yeah, it's not going to be like blowing them down or anything like this, but mostly just to have that effect of there's a wind, kind of a breeze, and on the breeze is this voice just shouting doom.
So all of you watch as these features sort of begin to meld out of the ground. Giant disco balls hanging over the top of where these creatures are huddling together. It's not like instantaneous or super fast. So they are all able to scatter as they see these things that they assume are just going to drop on them, Indiana Jones, Rolling Rock style. They scatter in all directions and begin retreating.
They would turn to everybody and say, "This is how legends are made."
So, but and as long as you're watching them, they are continuing to run at this point. It doesn't seem as though they are likely to come back. It was one thing to stare at the castle when nothing was going on, but
Well, I'm sure Copper Eyes or Copper Toes or Twinkle Toes or whatever his name will probably have a map to this mystical castle in the desert about a day's ride away now.
it's not. It's 240 miles is more than a day's ride for him. So
But true. Very far in the desert.
But still within 10 days ride.
right, if you want to ride through the killing fields of the Knolls. But still, his rumor, if he sells the rumor to somebody, it would be more legitimate than the map.
I mean, it's kind of close to the water at least, so maybe people will come in from that direction.
That's true. They could sail down.
Are you done playing around?
I suppose. You're no fun.
I think it was funny. Did you see them running?
I was putting on my armor. Prepare to open the hole. This wall so that we can fly out.
What'd you say?
prepare to open a hole in the wall so we can just fly out.
All right. So Clave uses an action, and the top of the ceiling just melts away into the sky.
Okay. As the hole in the wall is opened up and widened, you immediately discover that it is probably hotter now than when you went to sleep. So somehow the temperature has risen substantially overnight. Today is, unlike the day before, going to be a pretty hot day.
I cast the wind wall.
Yep.
Let's get moving.
So someone roll me a D100.
Okay, this time.
Yeah, you guys go.
All right.
Oh, so
I'll do it
fucking
again.
close.
So
Oh,
close.
so close.
You fly probably about 150, 180 miles. It's hard to tell exactly. You see as the green grassland beneath you disappears, and it seems to be solid desert entirely to the south. You do see various people traveling around the land, but nothing in the air. The air seems to be pretty clear where you are. You heard some talk of like griffins, but you have not seen anything like that so far in the sky. But you leave the grasslands behind and continue flying on. It's about another 4 hours when you land in the pure desert. And when you change back, so it is now where you are, probably about 110 degrees when you land. So I need everybody to make me 4 con saves.
Oh,
We should go in order though. So let's start with Aurelia. You go first.
Let's see. Oh shit! I hit it twice.
You're doing 4 of them, so
Okay.
2 more.
fucking on.
Nice.
So when you transform back, Aurelia, you're fine. You're a little parched. In fact, extremely parched. You need water pretty desperately, but you suffer no ill effects from that. Now, next we'll go to Clave.
yeah, mine are going to be the opposite of that. I guarantee that. Holy shit. That's
Yeah, but
actually
you-
much better than I expected.
Yeah, and you are also similarly fine, just very thirsty at the end of this 4-hour trek over the desert. Now, T-Hole. T-Hole's not really all that thirsty. He's fine. And Zarius.
all
Now we
fucking
know
downhill from
Zarius
here.
is going to get fucked with all those 20s. You
Right.
know there's going to be a bunch of ones.
Getting fucked real hard. Woo-hoo.
No, he is also
Wow.
basically fine.
Wow.
Amazing.
So it is
Are you using-
uncomfortably hot.
Zarius, do you have your sheet set to roll with advantage?
No, I was using the character sheet from D&D Beyond,
Okay.
which maybe you can.
You can
might
set
be
it
able-
up to do
I think
that
you can do that, right?
through Beyond 20. There's
Oops.
like a
Whatever.
always roll twice
Oops.
on type of roll.
Actually, I almost didn't think about it, but Zarius, I need you to roll for Kepri as well.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. Unless like Is she like full familiar? Can I like put her in that subliminal space? Maybe that's not a good idea.
Right. That portion of it, you have a connection with her like that, but you don't have access to that extra dimensional space.
All fine. And I wouldn't actually put her in any extra dimensional space right now anyway. Not while I'm near these fucking yahoos. Come on, Capri.
It'll be fine, they said. We won't contract the plague, they said.
Oh, fuck me.
There it is. There's a natural one.
So all of you are fine. Kepri, however, when she transformed back, she is immediately like on the ground. Her tongue is hanging out, and you can see she immediately goes to cast Create Food and Water, as she needs the water desperately, and she has 2 levels of exhaustion.
Yeah.
Is there?
Um,
is
And all of a
Kepri-
sudden, all of those empty water skins that you bought suddenly weigh 80 pounds as they fill with water.
Well, it's a good thing we're drinking that shit right now.
Is Kepri okay?
oh yeah.
She
Hey,
seems.
there it goes. Nice.
I mean, she's not on the verge of death, but 2 levels of exhaustion
Yeah.
certainly doesn't feel good when it hits you all at once. So what are you doing for camp for this night? You figure you probably will reach Il Khaja the next day, by the end of the next day.
So, do people want Clave to set up another sweet hangout, or are we gonna go more native?
I'd rather keep a smaller footprint. It's going to be kind of it's a good paper trail if we leave castles everywhere we go.
Well,
It's fine once in a while.
the spell doesn't have to leave anything above the ground.
I mean, the spell for anyone else does, but you could get rid of anything.
So, Clave casts the spell, but instead of affecting the area above the ground, he would create a subterranean space, kind of similar to like a prairie dog mound, I guess, with a bunch of winding chambers and like a maze like structure to it, but and then our space would be in a very nice temperature controlled place with plenty of fresh air and very comfortable beds. And if people wanted, they could have their own room somewhere else in the prairie dog mound.
Well, this is nice. It's a little bit more discreet. It's like business up top, party in the mound.
I suppose you could say that. But when we leave, I'm definitely going to create openings for the surface to enter. Right now, there's no connection to the surface. Like people can't get in, they can't see it. But tomorrow I may want to change that because I like to leave surprises for people.
Okay, so assuming no watch, somebody roll me a d12.
I'm gonna roll it.
Okay, now roll me a d100. Okay, so this night also passes and nothing finds you.
All right, so once we're ready, I would start changing the layout to make it very easy for us to get from the bottom of the prairie dog mound to back to the surface.
You were, by the way, one away from something that would have been, I think, way more interesting than what you rolled. The one you encounter you rolled really only makes sense on the surface. The one right before it, though, is fire begins to erupt from the sand.
Oh no.
That presumably could have gotten you even underground. Is anyone else doing anything? You're just moving on.
Just moving on.
So you are probably roughly 200 miles away from Il Khadjaa. The weather today is about as hot as it was the day before. So do you want to take any precautions? It'll probably take you about 7 hours to fly to Il Khadjaa.
And we wait till nightfall and travel, so it's not as hot.
Yeah. That seems reasonable.
And the fact that probably the Empire has probably packed the place with soldiers.
My one concern would be how would we see each other with only the moonlight to guide us? I mean, it's hard enough to see each other as it is. Because right now we're essentially playing follow the leader. A silent game of follow the leader.
If only this spell lasted for more than an hour. Do some protection from energy on people.
Like I
bet-
said, you could actually travel and then stop essentially every hour to take that water break to avoid having to make all the saving throws, which Kepri could I mean, she's fine at the moment. But she could easily die if she fails a bunch of saves in a row.
Honestly, I thought we were taking occasional breaks anyways, at least every couple of hours. But
Right. To sort of fend off, I didn't realize that, but to fend off the effects of dehydration while you're in this cloud form, you really do have to take a break about every hour. It cuts about an hour's worth of travel out of your day. You're really getting 200 miles in a day rather than 240, which would still get you to Il Khadjaa in 8 hours.
Well, in that sense, I say we just take breaks to make sure we're all well hydrated, particularly Kepri.
I agree.
But traveling at night would also probably prevent having to make saving throws.
I'd rather us be able to see each other.
Yeah, so would I. I think that's the best way to go.
Do T-Hole and Aurelia agree? I mean, I guess if Zarius doesn't cast a spell on you, or if he does and you just decide not to move, the 8 hours will pass and you'll still be in these caves.
Yeah, Teal will go along.
Yeah,
He's
looks like
not
it.
waiting till night.
Okay, so somebody roll me the D100. I mean, the other downside to this is while you're on the ground, you might encounter something that you wouldn't have if you were just flying the whole time. But someone roll
Oh.
me a D100.
I'll roll it this time.
So as you're taking a break in the middle of the day, it is oppressively hot. It is hotter than you would even have expected for the tail end of summer. It is almost like it is the height of summer. But while you are there, you see in the distance walking towards you some sort of. It is hard to make out at first, but Zarius is able to make it out before anyone else. And it becomes aware that it seems to be a camel walking on its hind legs.
Okay.
Does it look
Is that
possessed?
something that any of us would be familiar with?
I too would like to know that.
It is outside of anyone's experience, but it
Even
does seem to
living
be
here?
making its way in your general direction. Whether or not it's seen you, you don't know.
What about camels? Are camels common knowledge?
Camels are reasonably common knowledge. Like Zarius would certainly know about camels. T-Hole has been in the deserts. He would know about camels. Aurelia would have seen camels at the Imperial Zoo in her youth. The only one who might not have ever actually seen one is Clave. I just don't know if he's been in the deserts that much.
Hasn't, but I
But
assume
you
that
still probably would have heard of them. So you might not recognize this actually as a camel then, because they've never been described as bipedal.
and it's walking towards us.
Yeah, in your general direction. It doesn't seem as though it's headed exactly in your direction. It's coming north though.
About how far from us is it?
It is at the moment about 1,000 feet.
Well, I would start using creation to uh make a wooden dart, and then I would hand it to T-Hole and say, T-Hole, this is a special dart. When you decide to throw it, let me know beforehand so that I can prepare the magic of the dart for you to throw it.
Sounds good.
When it gets to about 800 feet, you can see it has definitely changed its direction to walk towards you. When it gets to 60 feet, you see it raises one of its arms into the air, and you can see it still has kind of a hoof-like appearance to it, but the hoof seems to separate out into what roughly approximates 3 fingers. And it says something that actually only T-Hole would understand as, hello, would you like an opportunity to trade with me?
It is speaking.
That's strange.
And it continues to walk in your direction. You realize it's wearing it's sort of makeshift clothes. It doesn't seem to be like have a saddle, but it does seem to have fashioned saddlebags into a kind of a pack system that it can wear. On its head, it's got like a little, not exactly, I'm not exactly sure what it's called. It's not exactly a turban, but it is a head covering that sort of hangs down to protect most of its face, although its snout does poke out quite clearly from it.
So Clave is going to cast Detect Thoughts. He can read surface thoughts without requiring a saving throw.
Right.
So he's going to do that.
You definitely immediately get a sense that this camel would like to earn some money, as it is in need of coin. That's its surface thought. It would like to trade food, essentially, fruit for money.
You know, I just realized its thoughts, is it in this language that only T-Hole can understand?
I mean, I would say this animal doesn't really, it's not thinking verbally. It is more thinking in pictures, so you could basically make it out.
Okay. So Clave would say to everybody, it seems like it needs money.
And still with its hands in the air raised, it says, I am Falah. I am a trader in this area. You have need of food. I sell good food.
We have plenty of food. At least,
I wouldn't
Yeah.
mind something a bit less bland, though.
Kepper just sticks her tongue out at you.
Capri, I love you. You're keeping us fed, but it's gross.
I imagine like since Capri has been conjuring all the food and water, like we've slowly, like she's like been like hiding bugs and stuff like in the water, such as we haven't noticed, and like by now we've like eaten like all these things that Capri has hidden.
Or at least that one has. The one who insults her food.
So Clave would turn to this creature and say, my comrades don't seem to care so much about the food. Do you have anything else to offer?
I am afraid. Well, that's true. He doesn't speak your language.
Oh, okay. So when he was speaking that last time, it wasn't in common.
No, yeah, he was speaking in a language that only Teal understands at the moment.
Okay. I thought he had switched to common.
He doesn't actually. He is a camel, so he knows one human language. He looks and says, I'm sorry, I don't understand. He very loudly says, I don't understand your language.
Why is he yelling at
Does
us?
anyone speak Sava?
T-Hole start like conversing in
That's-
Sava.
Thank the gods. I was afraid I was going to have to pantomime commerce.
I was
So
waiting.
I am a food seller in this area. Often I am considered to be quite the godsend because people sometimes will get trapped out here, and I am ideal for saving them. I have dates, wolfberry. Are you interested in buying food? I have Hansa fruit as well.
Oh, 2 gold pieces getting. Really just shows him 2 gold pieces.
Deal
He
translate.
immediately, seeing that money has come out, he immediately reaches down into one of his packs and pulls out a fairly thick blanket of sorts and spreads it out over the sand, and then kneels down on it and begins to sort of pull out these various fruits, berries, and seeds that he sells.
Okay.
And he just sort of motions to them because he didn't quite understand what you were saying, but you pulled out 2 gold.
Yeah, I just put the 2 gold on his blanket and then hold out my hands, like expecting him to give me 2 gold pieces worth.
So he begins to, not knowing exactly what you want, he begins to put into your hands first like a handful of dates, and then 2 of these green, sort of apricot-sized fruits, and a bunch of these red berries, along with a bunch of seeds.
Okay.
Do I detect any additional surface thoughts as this interaction is happening?
Just he is a little confused at first, but quickly figures out that she sort of wants him to hand her stuff. So he has to work that out, and you can see that he is in his mind running through different combinations of what we would trade for 2 gold pieces. Though the sense you get is that he's just running through permutations, not that he's trying to rip her off.
Mm.
You also get the sense that he thinks it's actually a fairly good trade because the stuff he's selling is all high in water content.
So Clave would say, he seems honest enough, at least from what I can tell.
And he says to T-Hole, I did not expect to see anyone traveling in these lands. Certainly not this time of day. Most people know to travel closer to sunrise and sunset. They'll break their travels up. The caravans don't travel at the height of the day. You are still quite far from any place where your kind would normally be. Have you come to see the druids?
We have come to see a druid.
Which druid are you here to see?
I wrote it down. I don't remember. Don't remember the factions. Sorry. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure that the druids around here would be super happy to trade with you. If your business is urgent, you will have to divert and go deeper into the desert. It's a hard road for your kind.
And Steve will communicate this back. I think we'll probably just, if that's the case, then we'll probably just avoid going deeper into the desert and continue on.
T-Hole, what druids? I don't remember druids ever being talked about.
I don't recall druids either.
Neither do I. So
I was confusing. I was confusing druids with some other group that we ran across.
So
So
this
I know I was
awakened camel attempts to talk you, T-Hole, into buying more of his wares, as he still has quite a bit of it.
Zarius is just eyeing this thing. Like, what the hell is this? I'm presuming we haven't, while we're out like this, haven't shifted our form or anything like that. So I look dragonborn. Like should look like myself, presumably. So
Yeah, I didn't disguise anyone. But Clay thinks what Aurelia got looks good, so he would pull out 2 gold pieces and kind of do the same thing as Aurelia did,
So
hoping for something similar.
he again fills your hands with dates and this green apricot-sized fruit, various seeds, and these red berries.
I probably would do it as well. Not for myself, but more for Kepri. So that Kepri has something a little more nutritious, or not really nutritious, but something to perk her up.
So you also get a collection of fruits. And he says thank you to T-Hole and bows before each of you, although he is relative to even Zarius sort of enormous because he is about 12 feet tall standing on his hind legs. And that's with his head sort of dipped down low so that he can look at all of you. But then he packs up his fruit again and rolls up his blanket, puts it back in his pack, and starts to walk off, unaffected by the heat.
That was an interesting character. Clay would then pop one of the dates into his mouth and see how it is.
It's good. I mean, dried fruit tends to keep very well in the desert. There's still a fair bit of moisture in it, though. So yeah, there's a little burst of water in your mouth. And it's pretty tasty. It's definitely a lot more tasty than the food you had been eating.
So with his mouth still kind of full, Clay would go, "This is really good. I should have got some more." And then he eats a little bit more of it.
Most minds going to Kepri.
Kepri's pretty happy with it. I mean, it is essentially kind of a candy.
Yeah.
As food goes. So she eats several of the dates. She doesn't so much eat the red berries. They're a bit more dry. And they have an almost chocolatey like flavor, which she doesn't seem to care for. The seed she likes well enough. She tends to eat meat. So she's much more a fan of the dates because of the sugar content in them.
Yeah.
Right.
The green fruit has a kind of tougher rind, and the inside isn't not exactly sweet. It's got more of an umami flavor to it, which is strange for a fruit. So, but she likes it just fine as a result of that. So, but once you finish rehydrating and eating your fruit, you transform, take off again. And by the end of the day, you can see Il Khadjaa on the horizon. It's noticeably smaller than Il Hashat, but it is still, by most standards, a very big city of several 100,000 people. Off the coast, you could see there is quite a sizable fleet of ships that you imagine are all, if they're not all Imperial, all the ones you can make out easily seem to be of a northern design, as opposed to the designs you would expect from ships that were built in this region. You can also see the river, the Great Nahal River, which flows by the city. There are Imperial ships flowing up and down the river. at various intervals along the length, pretty much as far as you can see into the distance.
It seems.
Oh.
No, I guess we're still yes for him. So like, guess we. Does is the ground pretty flat like um, all around the city? Does it look like there's places where we could like outcroppings or areas where we could like kind of discreetly like get down?
Right. So this is, I mean, this area here is where the river goes into the sea. And this river is sufficiently powerful that, in fact, there is like an estuarial freshwater zone that pours out into what would otherwise be ocean just because of the volume of it. But because this is sort of a river estuary, it is pretty flat. There's not a lot in the way, other than the city itself and its walls, not a lot in the way of terrain features. There are, if you're a little bit back from the city, like a couple miles, there are gentle slopes in the land so that you can find essentially a depression to land in and transform without people seeing you. That said, that you're also so far away at that point. If you're 2 or 3 miles out, you'd be a pretty small target for anybody to see in the first place.
Gotcha.
But you definitely can find like a secluded spot where nobody's around. This city, you notice, doesn't seem to have like a huge number of dwellings outside the walls. It seems as if the population is pretty centralized inside the walls.
We don't need to land so far outside then. But this city is similar enough to the other in that I would still need to be disguised, presumably.
I mean, what you would know is so Il-Kajad definitely is more used to Dragonborn than most other cities of created people, because they do have a large amount of trade that comes up from the Warmlands through Darmershah.
Mm.
So this is basically like Darmershah and your people used to get into fights. That was a couple centuries ago at this point. So relations are a little bit better, but
Still,
people still kind of think of your tribes as savage, but they do
Well,
business with them, so they tolerate your presence for the most part.
in that case, then I don't care.
Also, I didn't think about it, but close to the city, although there's not a lot of terrain features, there is a fair bit of agriculture. So you definitely can find like date palms, for example, and other fairly tall plants that would hide you at least from anybody who's like watching out from the wall.
Well, I would offer to disguise people, but if people aren't interested, Clay will return to his Aeon Arif form.
Yeah, I don't care enough.
I would
Not here.
I would prefer being disguised just to not attract unwanted attention from the Empire.
All right, I would cast seeming. I would cast it at everybody, but it wouldn't disguise Aurelia or Zarius. Just so that later, if we needed a quick disguise, you have it on you guys, and I can change it. Right now, it just looks like maybe a little gem on one of your tunics, or a little like a little chain hanging from a belt or something.
It's an illusion of you, but taller.
More emo.
So are you going into Ilkesha? Because you don't necessarily have to. This is just a convenient point to. It is easier for you to fly up the river than to fly over the desert. And it happens to be that your day ended when you got to Ilkesha.
I think we should at least stop inside the tavern and rest in a bed if we can, and learn what's going on here with the Empire. It seems there's a pretty steady stream of ships heading, presumably from Dharma Shah. Maybe we can find out what's been going on.
I know that Aurelia and Zarius, you have not really cared enough to want to be disguised, but we also have to be somewhat realistic. If the Empire has such a strong presence here, there's a higher chance that you may be recognized, especially if part of their mission may be to intercept us. I mean, Zarius, if you wish to remain to keep the appearance of a dragonborn, you can maintain the appearance. I can change things enough so that you would not be recognized as yourself.
To most, I will appear as any other dragonborn. The thing that would distinguish me from the others is this. I just put my staff forward.
You say that, but I'm sure the Empire has diviners and other individuals that are capable of recognizing the particular descriptive differences between individual dragonborn.
Maybe. But
We
we're
don't all just see lizards.
We are not lizards.
Exactly.
We are close enough that it could be that someone of my clan could be here and recognize me as well.
In that case, you would also recognize them and you could approach them. It's not safe for us to go into this situation without some sort of care.
Forgot to ask, where are you carrying the mummy now?
What?
Zarius has a mummy of the assassin that tracked him down.
Oh, I thought we put it in the bag of holding.
Yeah, I had mentioned that. I wasn't sure whether or not that's what happened.
Do I know? Did I get the sense that a dead being could contract the virus? Like, was that ever explored?
There
Like,
would
we know
not
that-
there would not have been a reference to that in the book of whether or not you could create an infection site out of an already dead body.
I don't know if I would have liked the idea of putting him in the thing.
So you're just going around carrying a dead dragonborn over your shoulder the entire time?
You disguised it as like a sack of grain or something.
at one point. So it seems like he does want seeming. Just a question of to what extent.
All right. Well, when I'm casting seeming, not only am I making it look like a sack, I'm also changing
Just-
Darius's color.
Hot pink.
You're now gonna be blue.
Are there blue dragonborn in the desert? In this part of the desert?
Yes, your nation. So the political structure of your nation, which I've thought about, all of like the noble, all of the royalty was copper. The dragon that served as your patron was copper. But the nation itself actually has dragonborn of various different sorts. Some there's a bit of a caste system, so that depending on what color you are, really will depend on what you can do with your life. But the ruling elites are all copper.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would have cared too much about the ranks and caste. Everybody dies, so yeah, that would be fine. A bit weird. Probably even weirder than being disguised as a non-dragonborn is being disguised as me but blue.
So Clave turns you into a blue dragonborn and puts a kick me sign on your back.
Aurelia, how do you want to appear?
Well, I guess I'll be disguised. I mean, I pretty much figured I could just go in there and just put my hood just barely up over my face to work for Obi-Wan, and whenever all the bounty hunters were looking for him, they couldn't find him. So, but I'm not him, so I guess I'll have to disguise myself.
Oh, who this Obi-Wan is?
Oh, it's we'll have to go back to the Feed Me Beats for you to hear that story.
It wanders this desert, the Great Dune Sea.
Yeah, he spies on young boys.
So I would turn Aurelia into a blonde half-elf lady. And she would be wearing some color. So
I don't know how
she
she'll
would
feel
lose
about
the
that
all
half
black.
elf
Yeah.
part of it.
And is that color black? Because that's the only color she seems to like.
It's a lighter shade. It's a gray. We'll go gray. Because baby steps.
So you make your way up to the gates. The gates don't seem to have there's no mechanism for inspecting people who are coming in. There's no guard at any of the gates. You can see there is a mechanism to shut the gates if need be, but people are just coming and going as they please. Also, just to be clear, the ships you see going up and down the river are going in both directions. So they're not all going up. Plenty of them are coming back down again. They're not the ships that are off the coast. You realize after watching them for a while are all substantially bigger than the ships that are going up and down the river. It may be that the river just doesn't accommodate ships of that particular size. But there are nonetheless, you've probably seen 30 different boats on the water that all appear to be Imperial. They're just of a relatively smaller draft than the, frankly, warships that are off the coast. But that's where we can end it for this week.
Nice.